Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Let's Chat. And we are talking with Nadine Hanchar today, and we've had a lot of interesting information coming out. But I'm going to read you Nadine's bio so everybody knows who Nadine is. Nadine is a counselor, consultant, a speaker, and a trainer since 1986, and she has recently become an international best-selling author. And congratulations on that, my dear. As a personality profiling expert, Nadine is the developer of the PEP personality process and the author of Knowing Me, Knowing You. The PEP personality process, which offers incredible insights into ourselves and others and how our processing styles affect our personalities, relationships, communication, and life. She's proficient, I can't even talk today, in a wide range of modalities and disciplines, and has taught most of the therapies and techniques she uses. Nadine specializes in working with trauma, abuse, relationship issues, and communication. Her results-oriented approach is designed to resolve the root causes of issues. This allows the person, the couple, or the family, or the organization to move forward to a better quality of life. Well, welcome, Nadine.
Thank you for having me, Brenda.
Yeah, you're welcome. So in our last segment, we had talked about the kinds of abuses, and we discussed emotional abuse, we discussed mental abuse, we touched on physical, sexual, and verbal. But there are more abuses out there that we're not aware of. So can you enlighten us on the other types of abuses out there? Because, I mean, seriously, it's crazy what is out there and what's going on in the world today.
Well, there's a couple pieces of the emotional abuse that I would like to retouch on, and that is that anytime somebody is breaking something, throwing something, hitting a wall, a lot of people, sorry.
Okay.
I don't know how to shut that off.
That's okay. We'll just keep on forging forward. Well, when you were talking about, while your phone is finishing, I didn't realize that, when my ex-husband was throwing an ashtray across the room and smashing it against the wall, that would be a form of abuse. Like I just thought, you're such a jerk. Like, you really just pissed me off. You're such a jerk, and I didn't want to be in the line of the ashtray, mind you, but that's interesting that you say that.
Well, the thing is that the message is, I want to do this to you. And that's the unconscious message. So, even though it's not happening to you, and this is something that, again, I think is a really important thing, because the person saying, well, they've never hit me, right? But they've broken things, and they've hit the wall, and they've stabbed a knife into a breadboard or whatever it is that they've done, but they've never touched me, and so they feel that that's not abuse to them, but it is emotional abuse, because unconsciously you're getting the message that this is what I'd like to do to you.
That's interesting that you say that, because a light bulb just went off in my head, because after I divorced him, I mean, he stalked me, he, hunted me with his gun. I mean, and then he hired somebody to kill me. And I was actually blown away that this person that I spent 21 years with would actually hire somebody to kill me. And I thought, like, I know that he was troubled and he had issues and things like that, but I never thought that throwing that ashtray and smashing the mirror and busting the windshield in the vehicle was actually directed at me to turn into, I want to hire somebody to kill you, and I'm going to hire somebody to kill you. Like, that just boggles my mind.
Yeah, and there's another form of abuse, which I call financial or economical, where they don't allow you to have your own money, or they don't allow you to work to earn money or to have your own money, or they control all of the finances, and they dole out an allowance to you, and you're only allowed to have this much money, and it's never really enough usually to do anything for yourself or to do anything that you want to do. And so they're controlling the budgeting of the household completely. You know, if you do work and you do earn money, the money goes over to them and they control it. You know, so financial and economical abuse are another form. And it's, you know, when you're
Yeah.
trying to get out of that situation, you often feel very helpless because you don't have any money and you don't know what to do, you know. And so those are things that, you know. And the other one is cultural and identity abuse. So using your culture against you, or using your religion or your spirituality against you, or using your sexual orientation about you. For instance, you know, if you, you know, you have certain sexual interests and you don't want your friends and family to know, or a certain sexual identity, and you don't want, you know, you haven't maybe come out of the closet yet, and they threaten that they're going to tell, you know, people about that, and they hold that over your head, and any kind of threat really is abuse. So if they're threatening you in any way, shape, or form, it's abuse. And, you know, if they're using any part of your identity or culture or religion or sexual orientation against you, this is a form of abuse. And it's all about control. It's all about trying to control and have power over you.
It is amazing when you're talking about the financial aspects, and, you know, the spouse controlling the money and you have none. And I know that women, and I know men are probably in that same situation too, but my experience has been with women that, you know, they'll try to squirrel a little bit away, like the change, or, you know, when they go to the grocery store and they buy something and they have to produce the receipts of what they've done. You know, they don't necessarily have to produce all of the change. So they've been squirreling away change so that when they have enough money that they can get away. But this takes years to do, you know, squirreling away, you know, quarters, dimes, and nickels to get yourself to a safe place because you have no other choice. Like it's crazy.
Well, and, you know, one of the things that I want to say about that is that so many people don't want to admit, not only to other people, but to themselves, that they're in an abusive relationship. They just think that, you know, it's not working, or, you know, he's having a bad day, or he's having, you know, he's upset, or he's stressed, or, you know, they make excuses and excuses and excuses for him or her, depending on the situation. And, you know, they don't, who wants to admit that they've been abused? You know, I mean, it's and particularly if it's not the kind of abuse that everybody thinks of, where it's violent or sexual. You know, if they don't feel that it's violent, they don't really feel that they can tell other people, and they feel embarrassed, and they, you know, they feel like, you know, they often feel afraid. They're afraid that people will judge them. They're afraid that you know, that he'll come after them. They feel unsafe. They feel anxious. They feel hurt. A lot of times it's just a lot of confusion. They feel a lot of confusion, or they feel they're not good enough, or they're not worthy, or they're, you know, their self-esteem has been eroded.
Yeah, it's true. With my marriage, nobody knew. Like, nobody knew what went on behind closed doors. Like, and we projected this happy family. We were like all love. You know, it just was the persona that I put out to the world, that we were doing great, because I was so embarrassed and so ashamed that it wasn't working. And I couldn't tell my family, because I mean, everybody loved my husband because he was like everybody's best friend, and, you know, but nobody's seen the sinister side of him, and except I did. And even after we divorced, it was it was my fault that I didn't make it work. You know, what was the matter with you? You couldn't even make your marriage work. And after he died, it was still my fault. Like, he committed suicide because of you. And, and it just went on until they figured out, oh, this is how he died. So I guess she was kind of like, telling the truth in lots of ways. So yeah, it's crazy.
It's often the case is outside of the house, they're a different person. And when they're in the house, they're a different person to you. And so oftentimes you're the one that sees that side of them and other people don't. They can be, I once heard it described as the person worked for the railway.
Yeah.
And so, when they came across the tracks to go home, it was like a switch. And that switch made them into this very unhappy and very abusive person. And yet, as soon as they crossed the tracks to go back to work, they were everybody's best friend and everybody's buddy, and everybody thought that they were just wonderful. And so, I mean, that's another thing, that when you're with someone that's like that, it reinforces, well, there must be something wrong with me.
Yes.
It must be my fault. And this is one of the things that people feel when they're in an abusive relationship. It's like, well, I can't make it work. There must be something wrong with me. There must, I just need to try harder. I just need to do more. I just need to be a different person. I just need to do X, Y, Z to make them happy. And it's such a terrible place to be, because you're always walking on those eggshells, and
Yes.
and they can be so unpredictable, and it doesn't take much often to set them off.
No.
And you never know what's going to do it. And so that instability, that unpredictability is very, very scary, and you're living in fear. But this does not mean you're not speaking up either. Like, this is the other thing that people don't realize, is that oftentimes you're speaking up to a point. You're saying things to a point. And so it is, you don't feel like you're just sort of, taking it and doing it, because you're bringing these things up, but you do it to a point, because if you go beyond that point, something bad is going to happen.
Yeah, you do your mini battles, and I know that's exactly what I did in my marriage. I had little mini battles of when he was going over the top and whatnot, and then we'd have the mini battle. But I mean, yeah, it was crazy. And I mean, my husband now, Bud, was one of those guys who is a fixer, so he was the one that was, in essence, being abused in his marriage, because he was always trying to make her happy, always trying to do what she needed, always at the beck and call, and doing that sort of stuff. So it's not just a woman issue, it's very much a man's issue if they are the kind of person that is a helper and a nurturer and things like that. They can be so easily taken advantage of, men and women. Women that are nurturers, you pick a guy and you say, well, I can fix someone. Oh, yeah, sweetheart, you can't. And the same with a husband. Well, I can make her happy. No, dude, you can't. So it's crazy.
I do want to address that a little bit. Men get abused as well, and they get all of the same kinds of abuses that women do, and you can imagine how difficult it is for a man to be physically abused by their spouse or whatever, because again, culturally, that's they feel diminished in that way. But certainly anybody who is trying to be the pleaser, trying to always make everybody else feel better, or the other way it can go is that people go into escapism behaviors. They go into well, I don't have any control over my life, so I'll they create an eating disorder, or they
Yeah.
create a drug or an alcohol problem, just trying to cope with what it is. And then, you know, then they can get, they have those things used against them, and, you know, it becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Well, thank you very much, Nadine, for your insight on everything today. It has, again, been very informative. I mean, I look back at my life and I think all of the things that you're saying, and I'm going, tick, tick, tick. You know, it's kind of crazy. But if anybody has any questions or comments, please ask your questions in the comments below, and we will address those in future segments so that everybody who wants to know something will be able to find that. Also, please remember that this is not to replace any counseling you're doing, any therapy you're doing. This is a knowledge-based conversation so that you understand what is going on in your life. And I know for me, I was very enlightened on a lot of the things that Nadine had said about, you know, the types of, you know, the ashtray and, you know, and all of that sort of stuff. So it's very, very eye-opening, I must say that. So anyway, thank you again, Nadine, and we look forward to our next segment with you, and talk soon. Bye.
Thank you, Brenda.